Good afternoon. How are you guys? Everyone's good? All right. Okay. So, yeah, welcome. Thank you for coming. We're getting started. I think there may be more people coming. But we're getting this one started. Yeah, we'll do a seminar on the mostly on the debate program. We'll also be talking about the mock trial program, right? But the main focus is on the debate side. So we got 5 speakers today. So you can see there are 4, and then our mock trial coach is on his way. He will be speaking at the last anyway. So we got 3 phenomenal debaters, right? We got 1 wonderful debate coach. Let me give you a quick introduction. We have Hao Ni, she's right over here. They all have won, numerous awards. Hao is a current member of Team Canada, our national team, right? And she has won many awards, and I mean she can introduce in more details by herself. We also got Sylvia, right in the middle. Sylvia is the French national champion, debate champion. And she's graduating from White Oak. Oh, by the way, Hao is graduating from Branson Hall, right? We also have Crystal. Crystal is the champion at McGill, right? One of the biggest debate tournament in Canada. She has also won, many other awards as well. She's graduating from Woodland. She's also the president of the Woodland debate club, right? All 3 will be into their new chapter of their life, which is college, and they can tell you which one they're going to go. I don't think they have made their final decisions, right? They're still choosing because they receive many offers from the undergrad schools, universities, and they're still making their final decisions. I believe the due date is June the 1st. We got Matthew Thompson. He's one of the best coaches, debate coaches. Matt is also the advisor for Team Canada, mainly focused on the economic issues, right? So without further ado, let's give a round of applause to Hao. Right, Hao.
Okay, so as you guys probably already know, my name's Hao, and I'm a current team member, a Canada member for the national team of Canada. I was selected in grade 11, but I'll actually talk a little bit about the experience of that later on in these slides. So today I'll just be giving a brief introduction about who I am, like giving you some information about me, and then I'll also be talking about my debate journey that got me to Team Canada, and also giving you guys some tips for the newer debaters, or even just people in general as to how important debate has impacted my life going forward, even just outside of the circuit of debating exclusively. Okay, so let's just start off with a little bit about me. So currently I'm a grade 12 student and I attend a school called Branson Hall, which uses the IB curriculum. And for those of you who might not be too familiar with the IB curriculum, it's pretty much just an accelerated curriculum in which you learn a couple of courses, a couple of years advanced compared to like the regular Ontario curriculum. Also, I really love animals. So my house, I've always been brought up around a lot of animals. And I think that has made me who I am today, made me more compassionate, made me more sensitive to other people and how they express their opinions as well. So I have 2 dogs, a cat, and also 3 chickens in my backyard. Also in my free time, I really like hanging out with like the cats in homeless shelters, not homeless shelters, but animal shelters. So I volunteer my time to dedicating my time to those types of animals. Also, a little bit like a little less known fact about me is that I'm a competitive softball player, and I've been playing since grade 7. And I think I attribute a large portion of my debate successes to actually being quite competitive in softball. And softball is a unique sport in which you are probably one player on an entire field, And you have to be able to accommodate to the stresses and to the burdens of being someone that your team depends on. So in many ways, those skills are actually skills that I apply to debate as well. And I think just generally having skills in a wide variety of different fields can make you a better debater as well. Also, a fun fact about me. So my name in English is Hao Ni, but in Chinese it's Ni Hao, which sounds the same as hello. But my mom actually named me so as a reminder that I should always be good to the people around me. But I just think that's a pretty cool fact about me and the meaning of my name. Okay, so next slide, let's talk a little bit about my debate experience. So I began competitively debating in October of grade 9, and my first tournament was Oxford Cup, which for those of you who might not know, is a qualifying tournament for the Oxford tournament, which is the most competitive BP tournament around the world. So you need to go through regionals, then you have to qualify, so do well at regionals to get into provincials. And once you get into provincials, you have to do well to get into nationals, and maybe the top 4 teams go to Oxford and compete there. So that was my first tournament in grade 9. And I know relatively compared to a lot of the debaters now, this is quite late of a time to start debate. For those of you who are maybe in grade 9, grade 10, it is not too late as long as you work hard. So that's just a little bit about my experience. So in grade 9, I think the first tournament, that was when I actually fell in love with debating. And I think a large portion of that is that it was a tournament that wasn't too competitive at the time, because I got really lucky. That tournament coincided with the day of Western University tournament. So a lot of the really intimidating debaters were at this other tournament, which allowed me to be able to better perform and also not be as scared about this specific tournament. And I did quite well at that tournament. I think I was the 6th top junior speaker. And that was really what propelled me into debate, because it made me realize that this was an activity that I can actually get good at. And then since then, I was somewhat involved in debate. I joined my school debate club. And I think that's so important for those of you who want to get involved in debate. So join your club, be more involved in the circuit. And then from there, you can also develop your debate skills as well. My grade 10 year, though, was the year that I think I worked the hardest in debate. And I got really lucky this year because COVID-19 hit, which meant that I had so much time at home. And most of that time I dedicated to doing things like reading certain sources. I did things like practicing debate rounds with my friends. So I'd wake up every single day at 7 o'clock just to do a spar with one of the debate partners I was friends with. And I also had a lot of time to do things like online tournaments and take classes as well. So this was also the time about grade 9, grade 10 when I took classes with LinkedKey. And I think that really helped me in my debate journey too. Grade 11, though, was when the vast majority of my hard work that occurred before actually manifested into results. And I think a very large myth in debate is that your achievements is proportional to the amount of hard work you put into it. But that's probably a very big misconception, because you're from the vast majority of people, at least in my experience, your hard work only starts showing after you have a good idea about the general framework. And that takes quite a long time to develop. So classes teach you the general understanding of debate, and then only then, maybe after a couple of months, does your achievements actually go through. So you do things like break out large tournaments, you do things like being able to actually achieve certain successes in the debate circuit. So in grade 11, that was when I was the top 10 to 15% of most speaker tabs, individually ranked. I also broke consistently at large tournaments and won some tournaments as well. This is also the year that I used the tournaments that I achieved results in to sign up and apply for Team Canada. And this was the only year I actually had a chance to apply to Team Canada, because in grade 10, unfortunately, there was some miscommunication between me and my coach that meant that I submitted the application a bit late and they just completely disregarded the application. So grade 11 was probably the only year that I had a chance to try out for Team Canada. And it was a really stressful experience, because I didn't really have the same experiences as other people who tried out in the past. But thankfully, I was selected through the provincial application, which we'll also be doing some explanations on later in this seminar. Grade 12 then, I slowed down because there was a lot of work involved with school. A lot of things that I had to also do. So I was still involved in the debate circuit somewhat. And this is when I qualified for the Oxford Cup, where we went undefeated in all of the in-rounds at Oxford, and then also broke top of the tab and then went into semifinals as well. At CNDF Pros, I was also the top provincial speaker and finalist. And then at the BP Nats tournament, which is a qualifier for Oxford, my team and I broke top of the tab, and I was the second speaker in the entire nation. So that's pretty much my debate experience. And it's just a rundown as to what has caused me to develop and what I did in my journey to become a member on Team Canada. I also want to make it clear that your debate journey is different for everyone. Everyone has a different start to the debate program, and they also have a different way they're introduced to debate. So really don't try and compare yourself with this specific journey, because there's many different people who I know maybe who started debate in grade 11 or even grade 10 who also had very similar achievements to me as well. So that's my debate experience. Let's talk about now my Team Canada trial process. So the Team Canada trial process has a couple of steps. I'm pretty sure it's only open to grade 8s to grade 11s. So people who are going into high school in the next year. And it usually opens, I think, around like February for like all trials. I'm not entirely sure, but I think like other debaters can clear it up for you. But what I went through was the provincial trials, which is essentially the trials where you are submitting an application to the province, which is a committee. So in Ontario, the provincial committee is OSDU, and you're pretty much just outlining all of your achievements in debate and then giving them some answers to some questions that they ask you. So they ask you, what is your contribution to debate? What do you think is your strongest strength as a debater? And how do you think you'll be able to meaningfully contribute to the team? So these are general questions that they will usually ask on these applications, but it is a written application based on your results and based on your like the way that you answer these questions. Something that they also look for is whether or not your tournaments are OSDU tournaments. So OSDU is pretty much a committee in Ontario that pretty much governs the qualifying tournaments for the provincial and national applications. And they're the ones who govern whether or not or decide whether or not you get to make it through the provincial trials. So they care more about OSDU tournaments. So OSDU tournaments are the ones that they organize, and those are the tournaments that they care the most about when you do your application. So that's something that you probably want to consider when you're setting up for tournaments and also preparing for certain tournaments in your debate journey. Also, a benefit of the provincial application is that top 3, like the 3 people that they select from the province, go directly into the national trials. So that's just a more direct way to get into the national trials. And it also has less risk involved as opposed to the alternate application. So just quickly on explaining the alternate application of Team Canada, the alternate application are for debaters who didn't get selected through the provincial application. So they just supply a separate application to the CSDF committee, which directly is the committee that actually looks over Team Canada. So, and then I think 30 something people get selected from that type of selection, and they're done like a separate alternate tryout tournament. And then from there, they pick another 6 or 7 to join the provincial selected individuals at the national tournament. But this one is a lot more competitive. It's a lot harder, and it often means that a lot of people get filtered through very easily because there's a lot of risk involved with like having to do extra rounds compared to the provincial trial individuals who go directly into the national trial process. So it's always best to keep your inbox open to make sure that you're updating yourself on when the deadlines are for the provincial applications, because if you can get in through the province, it makes everything so much easier and also reduces a lot of the stress that comes with having to prepare for alternate tryouts. And then finally, just the national trial process. So the national trial process has a couple of aspects in it. Usually they just make you do rounds in different positions. So you'll usually cycle through different positions. So in the WSDC style, which is the style that they'll be texting you on, you do the PM speaker, the DPM speaker, and then the final whip speaker. And basically this is also the same for the opponent side as well. So the national trial process just requires you to do rounds to be able to do different positions. And they also listen to your prep sessions to see whether or not you're a good person to prepare cases with. So you have to be a very well-rounded debater who is experienced in the WSDC style in order to actually be able to join the team. Something else as well is that once you do the round, there's a couple or a panel of judges who then give you individual speaks. And then at the end, those speaks come average. And then you are ranked on a speaker tab, which they will then likely use in reference to decide who makes the team. So your individual scores matter a lot, but it also matters, for example, whether or not you're a good teammate, whether or not you're contributing meaningfully during prep sessions. So you want to be someone who is supporting your teammates. You want to be someone who is able to help other people in a moment of distress. So just an example as to what happened in my national trial process. In the first round, there was someone who's really worried about the trial process. She came from a province that was not very advanced in debate or doesn't have a very established debate circuit. So she was really worried, and the partner I had, I was like constantly supporting her during the prep as well as during the round itself. And after the fact, she went out of her way completely to email the CSDF board and tell them about how meaningful it was, how we helped her through the process. And I think that really gave me confidence to know that debate isn't really just about the competitive aspect, but it's also about the meaningful connections you can build. But also, it also benefited me somewhat in the trial process when they saw that I was a good teammate. I was someone who was able to influence people or inspire people in ways beyond just the debate circuit. So it's always important to be mindful as to what you're saying to your partners during prep time. It's always important to be mindful as to whether or not you're a good person throughout the chat process, even though this is something that is quite competitive of a circuit. All right, so that's the Team Canada tryout process. I think my largest tips for the people who are interested in attending Team Canada is one, attend OSU tournaments. These are the tournaments that are valued most for the provincial committee. And also secondly, to be able to understand when the specific deadlines are, because people like the committee, the Ontario committee, will not be emailing every single individual or debater in the province to tell them your deadline is due now. And a lot of people miss the deadline like they did in grade 10. Their app just completely got disregarded. So you really want to make sure that you're keeping your eye out for deadlines. You're also participating in the debate circuit. Okay, so that's my tryout process. Moving on then. Let's talk about how debate has helped me grow. So for those of you who aren't necessarily interested in just becoming a debater on Team Canada, debate is also an activity that is generally very applicable to many different aspects of your life. So the first thing that debate has taught me, obviously, is communication skills. It taught me how to, for example, react quickly on my feet to questions that people pose to me. It also taught me how to be able to convey myself in a very effective manner to people of different beliefs and people of different ages or people of different sexes. And a large part of debate is actually being able to accommodate and adjust yourself to be able to provide people a certain amount of information in the way that is the most engaging for them. So if you're talking to children, it's obviously different compared to if you're talking to a judge who is older, or if you're talking to a university student. So it made me more mindful as to who my audience is, but also made me more advanced in how to communicate myself to specific audiences and tailor my responses in a way that is meaningful for them. Second thing that debate helped me do is it made me a more critical thinker. I think for obvious reasons, debate is something that requires you to think a lot, not only about the debate motion, but also think a lot about life. So a very funny thing that happens usually between me and my debate partners is that we would usually go through very traumatic experiences, whether it is school, whether it has to do with relationships or friendships, and we would automatically think, how can we apply this experience to a debate round if we were to going to use this motion in the future? So a really good part of debate is that it forces you to think about your experiences in the world and also the implication it has on other people. It also makes you a more mindful and conscious person to the people around you, because it's the actions that you are able to understand how this can impact other people when debate forces you to adapt that type of mindset. So debate made me more conscious of an individual. It also made me more aware as to how I'm developing throughout my life, as opposed to someone who is passively just accepting the things that are happening to me. The third thing that debate made me or helped me do is that it made me a more knowledgeable person. So a large portion of debate is that you have to understand current events. And I don't mean this as in you need to know the stats as to exactly what's happening in China. You just need to have a general understanding as to what is happening in the world in order to apply those concepts into debate rounds. But also just having a general understanding of the world really helps you understand how you should think about the world. So, I learned that China has certain issues in relationships with other countries. This likely is a concept I can apply in different AR rounds that isn't necessarily about China. So debate has forced me in many ways to actually be much more knowledgeable, to be understanding of the knowledge and be willing to pursue that knowledge. But it also made me someone who is able to understand the implication of knowledge in certain debate rounds or even in different aspects of life. So debate made me much more knowledgeable about the world. Final thing, or the fourth thing, is that it made me more confident. In debate, you are kind of forced to be more confident, because when you're speaking in front of a group, and if you want to win a debate round, you have to show to the judge that you're someone who is credible. So you have to be able to conduct an audience. You have to be able to do things like express your ideas without being scared of the opponents refuting your ideas. And also a very large part of debate is that being able to accept failure, being able to accept that you're wrong, because you're always going to have an opponent that tells you you are wrong for X, Y, Z reason, and they're probably going to destroy some parts of your debate case. But what debate has has taught me is that even if there are certain issues within my case, it still taught me how to, for example, to deal with those issues. And when those issues arise, it makes me more able to actually being able to accept those types of issues and not being too down on myself when those do occur. So debate is inherently an activity that requires you to be confident, and it teaches you the skills to be able to accept failure. It teaches you the skills to be able to accept mistakes that inevitably come when you don't run a very good case. Also, I think debate, I tell everyone this, but I think debate is an activity that encompasses a like massive diversity of different skills and different like types of traits and lessons. So it's creative in the sense that it requires you to always come up with new ideas. So it's very similar to art, where you have to take different perspectives on different things. But also debate is also very much like math, where you were required to do things like weigh between different arguments in the same way that you would weigh different things in math. So, and also like debate is also very much similar to like history or even literature, where you have to be able to understand different stakeholders within certain events. You have to be able to understand what events have actually occurred. So these are things that debate has taught me quite effectively. And I think debate is generally something that is able to encompass a large variety of skills. Finally, I think debate just really helped me introduce myself to a lot of friends that are really, really smart. There's a huge saturation of incredibly like inspiring people in debate. These are people who are often the like leaders in their fields, and they're able to do things like be like give you new ideas, but also they're just really, really ambitious individuals. I think debaters are one of the most inspiring people I've probably met or come across in my life. So that's how debate has helped me grow. Moving on, then let's talk about. Oh, I don't think this works.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Things that are incredibly important to understand debate. So there's three things that I think is really important. The first one is to develop an actual love for the activity itself, where everything is easy once you love it. When people tell me or ask me how much work did you put in, or was it very hard to do debate work and to grind through debate, I often would think like, no, it wasn't super hard for me. And I usually would get down on myself like, wow, other people are putting in so much work, but I didn't put as much as what I worked. Then I realized that I actually did a lot of work when I go through all of my documents. Like I have at least like 1,000 of documents where I just write about debate cases and like to take notes on types of articles that I've read. So, but like I never thought of that as hard work once, because it was more so something that I enjoyed doing. It was never something that I thought was tedious or anything at all. So when you actually develop a love for the activity, that's when everything becomes so much easier to do. Also, I think it's so important to give your children space and to let them find and develop at their own pace. A lot of the parents that I've heard, or even like my own parents sometimes, they would think that it's so important just to push my child into the hardest of classes and force them into the most competitive tournaments. But you have to let your child like maybe start from the basic levels. That's when they can build their confidence, because confidence is so important. And then that's when they can slowly develop into their own pace and to also get more advanced in debate. So always give your child time to develop. Don't always just force them into the most competitive tournaments, because that's usually what's caused them like to resent the activity itself. The second thing that I think like is so important is to find a community that you actually love. So do things that you attend classes, go to debate tournaments, join servers, make friends. These are so important in order for you to actually love debate itself, because when you're surrounded with good people with good intentions who aren't constantly talking to you about, oh, it's so important for me to do better than you at a tournament, that's when you actually find that debate has so much more aspects of it than just like the results at tournaments. And you also find people that are meaningful to you in your journey in life. So do these things and like find a community where you can regularly talk to at debate tournaments, and that's how you can like find a love for the activity itself. This is also why I think classes are really important, because when you attend classes, that's how you get the necessary like friend group in order to like talk to someone at debate tournaments. It's also how you build a somewhat connection to the debate circuit as a whole. The third thing that I think really helped me is to actually find role models and understand how those role models actually improved in debate. So one of my role models was Gabby Lynn, and I would constantly like ask her sometimes, like, what did you do to improve? And whenever she told me, I would try to do to a larger or more like a larger amount. So she told me she read 5 articles a day. I tried reading 10 articles a day, because I realized that she was so much better than me, and I needed to really catch up to her and or by like advancing myself at a putting her pace in her. So all of these things are so important in order for you to understand not only how hard other people are working, but also to give you perspective as to how hard you should be working yourself. So understand how other people work so that you can be a better worker too. The fourth thing is mindful practicing. So a lot of people I see just practice on their own time and just not reflect on how they are practicing. So they just run rounds, and then after the rounds, they just like chat with their friends. But what is the most important about practice is not the act itself, but rather how you reflect on the practice and how you think this practice can impact you into going into future rounds. So you constantly have to reflect on how you did in rounds and how you can imply those lessons that you learned into future rounds. So for me and my partner at debate tournaments, we would usually just like do a round, and then it would end at 8 o'clock. And then we would talk until usually 3 a.m. in the morning, just talking about how the debate round has actually occurred throughout the round itself, but also the issues that we kind of came across in the debate round and how we can address those issues going into the future. So being able to practice is not enough. You have to be able to reflect on the practice in order for it to actually be meaningful. Okay, so those are the 4 things I think are incredibly important if you want to advance in debate. So move on then and talk about the general benefit of classes. So I think one of the largest things that really helped me in debate was attending classes, especially when I was just beginning debate, because that was exactly what guided me in the right direction. So a lot of teachers will guide you in the general direction as to where you should develop in debate, and then it's up to you to do things like actually practice those things yourself. Also, I think like the classes teaches you how to correctly self-reflect on yourself and the debate rounds that you've done like throughout your journey or whatever, or like tournaments, because at the end of the day, coaches can't be there at every single practice you do. They can't be there at every tournament you are at. They can't be there to watch every single speech that you give. So the most important part is to learn how to be able to advance yourself, and coaches are there to teach you the general directions and general guidelines of what is important in a debate round. And then it's up to your responsibility to actually apply those in your day-to-day practices in debate. Also, I think classes are super beneficial for those of you who can't find partners in your clubs, because a lot of you might not come from schools with very established debate clubs. So a lot of my friends, for example, they have a challenge in finding debate partners to go to tournaments with. So I think classes are a very good like environment where you not only can practice with these people, but also have a general understanding of who you can go to tournaments with within your classes. Finally, I think classes can really help you sign up for tournaments. I know that a lot of my friends have a difficult time signing up for tournaments because it's very, very competitive to get spots for tournaments. And it often requires like a 2-second window for you to sign up on the form. And if you miss that window, it's so hard for you to even attend tournaments and the most competitive tournaments that actually matter for Team Canada. But classes and institutions, they usually generally help you attend those tournaments. They sign up for those tournaments, and they usually can reserve spots for you as well. And that's so important if you want to be able to attend very competitive tournaments in order to actually do well in debate and have achievements too. Finally, classes are super important for practice. It forces you to practice with new people. It forces you to actually get up from your bed and run practice rounds. And it forces you to do things like reflect on those types of rounds after the class as well. So classes are super important and a very good place to practice, especially if you can't develop or find a community of debaters that are willing to practice with you on your own. And finally, the benefit of classes, as I already mentioned, is that it builds a community and a sense of competition that is quite healthy if you want to advance in debate. You have a good understanding of how other people debate, and that actually acts as a sense of incentive for you to actually do well in debate as well. And it also builds a very strong community where these are the people that you'll see at debate tournaments. These are the people that you can actually talk to at debate tournaments. These are friends that you can actually have to attend debate tournaments with you as well. So I think classes are generally very important if you want your child to advance not only in the beginning stages of debate, but also into the most advanced types of debate like calibers too. So I think finally, I'll just quickly talk about what I personally did to improve outside of classes too. So I already gave you some information about why I thought classes were super important. But as I already said, teachers are incredibly helpful, but they are only there for a very small, limited, like a percentage of your actual day. So it is much more important for you to also be able to do things yourself and to be able to learn yourself too. So there's a couple of things I did to improve. Firstly, I found people that I can regularly spar debates with. So for those of you who don't know, sparring debates is just like practicing debates with individuals where there's no stakes involved. And I usually do this on a debate server, or I do it with my friends at a debate club, or I just randomly do it with my friends on Skype as well. So these are things or like opportunities that you can have and establish for yourself in order for you to have the practice necessary to get better at debate. Also, I did lots and lots of tournaments. So in my grade 10 and grade 11 year, I was probably attending every single tournament, every single weekend of like my life. So it's like probably like a lot of commitment. So if you really want to advance in debate, I think tournaments are super, super important, because not only do you have competition against people that you never saw in debate classes, but it also has really good judges that is there to teach you how to improve in debate and also give you advice as to how to improve going into future rounds. Also, I did a lot of very extensive reflections after rounds and organized all of my feedback. So I usually have a whole document where I commit just to organizing the feedback I get in each round and also taking notes on what happened in each round and also making reflections as to what happened in each round myself as well. So it's very important not only to remember the feedback, but you have to write the feedback down somewhere so you can come back to it and also review it whenever you can. Finally, or final three things. One is read a lot of articles. So I read about 10 articles a day for like about 3 to 4 months in the summer of my grade 10 to grade 11 years. And this is pretty lengthy articles. And not only do you have to read it, you have to take notes on every single article. So what happened in the article? What are the statistics that you've learned? What is the general information that you got from the article as well? So not only do you have to read it, I think it's generally beneficial for you to take notes on it, and you can review those notes and have like a better memory of what happened and what you read through those articles too. Also, a very similar thing is watching and taking notes on videos, seminars, and debate rounds. So there's a lot of very good resources on YouTube that you can use for searching up certain debate rounds or certain competitions. And you can just watch the debate rounds and you can just take notes on what the speaker said and what they did well and what you would improve on if you were in a speaker in that specific round. So those videos are really helpful if you want to get better at debate too. I think there's a final point that isn't showing on the.
Oh, really?
But it's okay. So those are generally the things that I did to improve in debate personally. And I think those things are probably the most important, as well as taking classes and applying those types of things that you learned in classes too. Oh, the final thing, right, is to make a list of reasons why I want to improve in debate to keep me motivated. I think debate is something that is generally getting a lot more competitive now. Many people realize it's very useful for their children, but a large part of being able to keep on track and also be willing to do very tedious tasks like improve and do constant debate rounds and to practice and to take notes. These are things that you would only do if you're motivated for a specific reason, or if you think that debate is actually beneficial for you. So I think it's so important to constantly remind yourself on why is this meaningful to me? Why do I want to continue doing debate, even if it's very tiring at times? And it really helps to keep you motivated in times where you might be feeling a bit tired, or you might be feeling a bit hopeless because your results aren't that good. So always keep a list as to why this activity is meaningful to you, which is also why I think debate is something that you have to find a genuine attraction or love for in order to get better at it. But yeah, those are the general things. I think there's also a question and answer period later, but yeah. Thank you.
Right. You got it. Right. Thank you so much, Paul. I learned something as well. 10 articles a day, right? How many do you read? I mean, I don't read 10. I mean, to be as successful as Paul, you need to read a lot, right? So that's my main takeaway. And also, I think how you didn't start super early. I mean, you start debating, right? So you started in grade 9, yeah. So it's never too late, guys. Never too late. All right. So thank you. Now, let me introduce Sylvia. As I said, Sylvia is the French national champion. Let's give a quick round of applause to Sylvia.
All right, hi everyone. My name is Sylvia, and just like Hal, I'm also an IB student, but I'm also in the French immersion program at White Oak Secondary School. And basically today I'm going to be talking to you about my debate experience, specifically in the realm of French debate and how that helped me grow not only as a person, but also as a student. So first, going over my debate experience, I started debating in grade 7, which is kind of early. I spent a lot of my formative years debating. in LinkedKey. And then when I was in grade 9, I started taking debate more seriously, going to tournaments, especially because I joined my school's competitive debate team. And I've been a member of that team for the last 4 years. And I've been able to like attend a lot of tournaments and get access to a lot of unique leadership opportunities that I don't think I would have been able to get in other like extracurricular activities or extra clubs that I would have done at school. Specifically though, I'm going to be talking about French debate, but first providing some context because it's generally like a lesser known, less popular circuit within the competitive high school debate circuit. So French debate is the exact same as regular debate. Your competitions are all the exact same, except you deliver your speeches in French. And like the amount of French that you're expected to speak depends on the level of competition you're at. So for example, if you're in Ontario, the way that you do French debate is you start at the provincial level, which is considered a bilingual tournament, which means that you can speak in English and in French. The general requirement is that you spend at least 25% of your speaking time speaking in French, although it's generally advised to do like a 50-50 split because you're able to show judges that you're actually like more fluent in both languages, but it'll also help you better prepare like for the national tournament, which is going to be entirely French. So I started doing French debate when I was in grade 10. Mostly because the seniors in my club told me it was a good opportunity, especially because I'm a French immersion student. So you're able to combine like the skills you get in debate, like critical thinking and communication, and like being able to like think analytically with your ability to like speak French and communicate in a different language. So that year I started in the provincial circuit where I was able to qualify to nationals. I think it's like the top 4 or 5 teams, but it depends on the year and also depends on like the amount of teams there are. I qualified to nationals, didn't win anything, but then in grade 11, I did the whole thing again. So I went to provincials and I won provincials. And then through that, I was able to qualify to the national level and I was able to win that as well. Okay, so really quickly, I want to talk about how French debate is different than regular debate. So the first and most obvious difference is in terms of like language. So I think Hal already talked about this a little bit, but debate in and of itself is already pretty hard. Like you're expected to think really critically and also really quickly, especially in impromptu rounds. So it's pretty like intense. And like intensive, there's a lot of work that goes into it, a lot of like learning, a lot of reading, a lot of like critical thinking that you need to do to get good at debate. But you also have to do that in like a second language. So you're going to be like trying to construct arguments and make your thoughts and arguments coherent, but also being able to do that in a language that you might not be as familiar in, or you might not be like as comfortable speaking. So generally, I think that like the language challenges are something that deter people from doing French debate, but one of like the main incentives that help you like overcome that, because like, yes, French debate is hard and might be comparatively harder, the circuit is going to be a lot smaller and therefore it's going to be a lot less competitive. So you're able to get a lot closer with the people who are doing French debate just because there's like less of them. So you like run into them more often at tournaments, but also the circuit is like less competitive. So it's easier for you to do things like win national. Okay, next I'm going to talk about how debate helped me grow, because I think like as like cheesy and as cliche as it might be, I think debate has like shaped me into the person I am today. And it's helped me like achieve a lot like in school academically, but also like grow as a person. And I think I have a lot to thank debate for. So firstly, how it helped me grow as a person. So obviously, as Hal tells you, it makes you a lot more like globally informed because you're expected to like read the news and know things that are going on in the world. Specifically in like French debate, the circuit likes to focus on like French-centered news. They like to talk about like Francophone identity and their role in like Canadian identity and education and stuff like that. So you have to read up on that as well. And I think it makes you like more globally informed, more knowledgeable. And then the other thing is that it makes you a lot more outgoing. So I'm going to talk about this more a little bit later, but as a child, I was like super shy. Even when I started debate, I was super shy and not outgoing at all. But then when I was able to join debate, I think already that was like one step outside of my comfort zone, and I was able to try things that challenged me. And that were really hard for me at first, but I think it like forced me to step outside of my comfort zone and then grow as a person and be more willing to try things that are challenging. And then after that, when I was doing like French debate, I was even further outside of my comfort zone. I was like debating in a different language and like with people that I didn't really know. And so I think that it makes you more comfortable taking on challenges and doing things that are initially difficult or initially uncomfortable, because like, you know, like nothing that bad is going to happen. And eventually it's going to help you grow and it's going to like teach you a lot of things that are very valuable. And then the third thing is that it just made me a stronger communicator. So I'm better able to like talk to people and like network. And I feel like less scared talking to people that I don't know, which I think is definitely like a very useful skill, being able to talk to your peers without being scared of like what they might think of you, or being able to like speak to an audience or speak to like your teachers or deliver presentations without being like really scared of what your peers might think of you. I think that's like something that's really important. Um, I also want to like highlight the fact that debate helped me overcome my shyness. So I mentioned this earlier, but when I first started debate, I was like really, really shy. Henry can probably testify to this. Matt can also definitely testify to this. But I was really shy in that like I didn't participate in class, and I was like really, really quiet and like soft spoken. But I think that joining debate helped me overcome that shyness in like a few main ways. I think first, the nature of debate just makes it hard for you to continue to be shy, because being shy is just being like scared of like talking to other people because you're scared of what they're going to think of you. But when you're doing debate, you're like thinking really like critically, and it's like a really intense activity. So I think that just like the nature of debate makes it hard for you to be shy, and also means that you have to like wholeheartedly believe in the things that you're saying, and like wholeheartedly believe in yourself, I guess. So that makes it like easier for you to overcome shyness. And I think that the other thing is that part of the reason that I was shy was because like I was just like other people. And especially when I first started debate, I was like really intimidated by other debaters in the circuit because they were all like super smart, super articulate, and just like very well put together. And I didn't think I was like that. But then I think the more that you debate and you like meet more debaters, you end up realizing that they are just regular human beings, despite being very like eloquent speakers. They're just like regular people who have the same niche hobbies as you and are like willing to spend weekends at like tournaments instead of doing normal teenager things. So I think that when you realize that, you like get over the fear of talking to other people, because you realize that like no matter who you present it to, if it's like your teachers, your peers, like interviews, if you're doing that for like the college process or for jobs, like they're just regular human beings. So like there's no reason for you to be like scared of them. And so it's a lot easier to talk to them and like connect with them. Next, talking about how debate helped me grow as a student. So obviously it like improved my like critical and analytical thinking, which is going to be important like no matter what you're doing. So like, even if you don't want to be like a competitive high school debater and go to like tournaments every single weekend, I think that it still helps you like develop a lot of soft skills that are going to help you in school. It helps you like think critically, how you can like engage with the content you're learning in class, how that might apply to like real world situations, how that might apply to like your own life. Second, though, I think it helped me succeed in like my language courses. So, for example, in English and French, I find that a lot of people find like language courses to be some of the harder classes to like improve in, because there isn't any like tangible content that you can study. So, like for example, when you're learning math, you can just like practice questions until you get good at it, or like memorizing formulas. In like econ, you can learn like different like schools of thought, like theories. Well,
I can do this. Or no, here, here.
But I think that like language courses are things that are a little bit harder to improve in, just because you can't just like attend a class and like learn potential skills and just get better at them. So I think that like the skill that debate teaches you implicitly, just like through debating all the time and speaking and being able to like articulate your arguments or like your thoughts in a way that makes sense to other people. I think that helps you a lot in English and French, whether you realize it or not. So for example, I think I've gotten a lot better at like my English classes, like writing essays, being able to do presentations in class, because I'm just better able to articulate my thoughts and like put them into words. And I think that helps you succeed a lot more. And then in French, I think part of the reason why French is hard is because you're just like not comfortable speaking it, like speaking French, especially if it's not like your first language, it's just going to be like an inherently uncomfortable situation. But I think the more you practice it and like the more you like push yourself to like speak in French and deliver speeches in French and engage with other people in like a separate language, it's going to help you like become more comfortable in things that like you aren't necessarily like super familiar with. And I think that like French debate uniquely is something that helps you like find comfort or like familiarity in being uncomfortable or in being vulnerable. And I think that helps you like become a better student because you're more willing to do things that you might not be super comfortable or familiar with, that will help you in the long run, like learn more skills and become more comfortable doing different things. And then the last thing in terms of like helping me grow as a student. I think it made me like a better and more confident presenter. So like I know a lot of people, and like I used to be like that too, where when you do school presentations, you would like write an entire script and like memorize it word for word, and then like word vomit it to the rest of your class. And like honestly, I think that my teachers saw that and thought that like I was not doing good in my presentations. Definitely reflected in my grades, because when you're like memorizing something, you're like really focused on I guess just like regurgitating what you wrote on your laptop the night before, as opposed to actually engaging with your audience, engaging with the other people in your class, engaging with the content that you're like teaching. So like House said, debate sort of like makes you sort of adapt to who you're talking to and like who you're engaging with. And I think that once you realize that and step away from like pre-constructing everything you're going to say, like like wording out exactly what you're going to present, I think it makes it a lot easier for you to engage with like your peers, with your teachers, and like answer questions. And when you do that, I think it becomes a lot more obvious that you're very interested in what you're talking about. And that's something that like, teachers are going to notice. And it makes you just like overall a better, more confident speaker. Okay. The last segment of this is going to be advice to current high school students. I thought about this a lot, and honestly, I don't think I have a lot of like groundbreaking advice that's going to change your life. Or also any comments that are going to apply to every single person in this room. But I think a few things. First, obviously, join debate. Even if you're not going to like do it competitively, even if you don't want to go to tournaments every single weekend, I think debate still gives you a lot of soft skills that are going to apply in virtually every single aspect of your life. You can become like a more confident speaker, more willing to talk to people that you aren't familiar with, and that can help you like branch your social circle and like meet new people. It makes you like a more critical, analytical thinker, which helps you do better in school and stuff like that. And also, I think you can meet a lot of people like just through like doing competitive high school debate and joining my school's club. I think I've made some of like my closest friends, like I've had throughout my entire high school experience. I've gotten like really close to them through debate. So even if you don't want to do it like competitively, I still think that like doing debate can teach you a lot and has a lot to offer. The second piece of advice I think I have is to do things and join clubs because you're genuinely interested and not just like for the sake of doing it. Because if you're joining clubs for this, just for the sake of joining or for the sake of like having a one-liner on your university applications, you're not going to be happy there. And also your contributions to those clubs aren't going to be meaningful enough to actually have an impact on like your university applications or on your resumes or whatever. So I think that doing things because you're genuinely interested in them like motivates you to like do more work in those clubs, to improve those clubs or to like improve yourself. And overall, you're just going to be like happier and have a better high school experience. The last piece of advice that I have for high school students is to like just not take yourself so seriously, because like not everything is going to be a competition. And I think that you're going to be a lot happier if you just like stop comparing yourself to other people and try to do it like based on your own metrics and how you can grow as like an individual person as opposed to like in comparison to your peers. Yeah, that's all I have for you guys.
All right. Well, thank you, Gabriel. I can testify her experience. I still clearly remember the first day she came to LinkedKey to the debate class, and she was the most quiet student in the class. And I watched the class, you've been through, and I was super happy to it. But that was wasn't super easy, right? Given the shyness you mentioned, but then you successful. You won Sylvia won the French national camp. Great achievement. Thank you. Now let's welcome Crystal, our third speaker. Come on up.
Ooh, we got a little animation there. Okay. Hello, my name is Crystal. Before I get started, I just want an idea of the demographics here. How many of you guys are in high school? Okay, excellent. Sorry to single you out. And you too. How many of you guys are in middle school? Okay, more people. And how many are in elementary school? Okay, cool. Don't worry. I started debating when I was in grade 5. So if we do some quick math, it's been 7 years. Okay, quick introduction. You guys know that I won McGill. I don't know, I finalisted at nationals. I went to Cambridge schools, which is an invitational. I was one of the top 4 teams at Harvard World Schools, whatever. But I think the more important stuff is what I did with my school and in terms of the community. So I'm the Woodlands Debate Club president, and I also run the prefects, which is like a student leadership organization. I'm the ethics team vice president, and then I was an Apollo fellow, which is basically this program in Oxford last year over the summer for debaters across the world. And I'm going to be an incoming Western or UT student, haven't chosen yet. And also I will be coaching at LinkedKey this summer. So maybe I'll see some of you guys in a couple of years. I'm going to talk about 4 main things. First on exploration and knowledge. Then I'm going to talk about what it means to think better and think as a debater. Then I'm going to chat about ambition and setting goals, like, for example, winning worlds or being a part of Team Canada. And lastly, about leadership and what that means to me and how to learn it through debating. Went a little too far. Okay, so in debate, because I'm assuming most of you guys have done before, the style that I do most often is called BP, British Parliamentary. We get 15 minutes after we see the topic, and then we're not allowed to use the internet. We have to make up our arguments on our own, and we just chat with our partner. So obviously, you'll need to know a lot of things. How reads 10 articles a day? Me personally, I stick with 3, 10's a lot, but you will need to be very knowledgeable because there's this website called Hollow Emotions. You can just find a bunch of debate topics there. Here are 10 random ones. For example, you could be told to debate the rise of private cities in developing countries, or you'll talk about giving more votes to citizens according to their performance on a current affairs test, or maybe even you'll discuss the veil of ignorance and things like distributive justice. All these large topics, you will be able to know about them because you'll have to if you want to do well. I'm assuming most of you guys are not immediately thinking of long cases and arguments for all of these motions, but I'm sure like Sylvia and Hao, because they've been so experienced in debating for a long time, you can kind of look at any topic and just come to mind and know what arguments you're going to need to discuss. And this is because I've spent a lot of time case filing. This is just a small screenshot of my Google Drive. And from all these lessons that I've learned through perhaps taking LinkedKey classes or taking notes on news articles, you will just be forced to learn a whole bunch of topics. Perhaps it is the history of the entire origins of colonialism, or maybe you're talking about the Middle East or distribution of justice, or perhaps economics and finance. There are a whole bunch of different subjects that you will just get to know a lot about. Perhaps you don't even necessarily know what it means to understand colonialism at all. And I think what's so good about debating is that you'll be introduced to a whole bunch of topics. It's not just going to be about politics. You also will have to be forced to learn about social justice. It's not just that, it's also climate change. And perhaps it is what it means to be a human and the human experience. There are all sorts of different emotions that you'll learn about. The next thing that I want to talk about is what it means to think like a debater, because it's a very different way of thinking about motions. I think the intuition for most people, when they see a contentious topic, they immediately think of their own opinions. For example, you might really support the idea of a universal basic income. And that's just because you've read a lot about it, perhaps just all arguments for your own side. And that's just what you need to think about. But in a debate round, you don't get to choose who you debate for. You're just told to, you're going to have this opinion, you're going to believe in it, and you're going to deliver a 5-minute speech and convince everybody that you want to believe in this thing. And as such, you're forced to see both sides of any kind of conflict. I think it's made me a way better thinker. When I look at an essay topic, I won't just need to think, okay, this is my thesis, I'm going to argue all these things. I'll consider all the questions involved. Perhaps they're philosophical questions, or maybe it's really about what we want the world to look like. It is a political question. I'm not sure. And I think that a willingness to be uncertain and ask yourself questions and look at any topic from both sides is a skill that is really important. It makes us better thinkers. It makes us also better people to converse with. The next one is I've learned to develop my own opinions better. And this is because you can't just go up to the podium and tell everybody, like, you should really believe in this thing because it is good, vaguely. You need to put so much justification with every claim that you make. Otherwise, they'll get called up by the other team, right? They'll tell you like, oh, this is unsubstantiated. And I'm like, oh no, my case is gone. So you're forced to justify every single one of your beliefs. I think that's made me way, in some ways, less opinionated because I'm really forced to dissect all of my beliefs. And it's also made me more willing to engage with other people's opinions, which I think is something that's really necessary in a world that's so full of polarization and misinformation and perhaps inflammatory news. And also, you will just know way more things. I talked about it earlier when I showed you a screenshot of my extensive Google Drive. But through these weekly lessons that you'll take, or perhaps you'll watch YouTube seminars and read 10 articles a day, you will know a lot more, and it will put you down so many more different paths. So when I first came into high school, I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life, which, makes sense. I was 14, I was a little silly. But after debating for a while, I discovered that I really enjoyed talking about economics. I really enjoyed learning all these philosophical questions. And I would only have ever been able to experience that through debating, because nothing against the high school system in Ontario, but it will not expose you to as nearly as many topics as debate would. So I think that it's made me a lot more knowledgeable in a lot of different aspects. And okay, here's a funny story. Thornhill, it was a Canadian parliamentary debate tournament in 2018. It was one of my very first debate tournaments. I was very young. I was 13, I think, at the time. And I placed at the 55th team out of 66 teams. We lost all rounds except for one. And I was quite sad after, because I was like, oh no, I'm a terrible debater. What do I do? And now I'm here and I've been debating for 5 more years, and I've consequently won more tournaments and done a lot better. And the only reason why I'm here and I'm talking to you guys and I enjoy debating so much is because it forces you to be ambitious and set goals for yourself. I think my first goal was really like, don't lose every single round in a debate tournament, which is a pretty low bar. And I just cleared it by winning 1 round. But then your goals get bigger, because once you achieve that one, there's still more to do. The next goal for me was to make a quarterfinals. And after that, I wanted to win a tournament. After that, I wanted to win more. And I wanted to meet more people, and I wanted to do better and continue performing at the highest level. And I think you're only ever able to achieve these ambitions and these goals if you're in a competitive program. So I do other things, right? Like I like to read, I like to write, but it doesn't push me to achieve as high and meet as many people as things like debate would, because there are clear goals that are set out for you. And I think you meet some people that have achieved those goals, people that have won so many tournaments, and that makes you want to win and continue performing. But as part of this ambitious goal setting, you will lose a lot. And within BP, British Parliamentary Debate, you're one of 4 teams. So most of the times, you're not going to be winning the round. And I think this teaches you to ask for help, because after every single debate round, the judge will tell you, like, you lost, and here are all the reasons why your case was bad. But here are also all the reasons why your case was good. And you get to ask them for feedback. And every week, if you go to debate lessons, you'll ask your coach, who knows, who's like super smart, because they just know more than you, right? That's just how it is. And then you ask them for feedback. You get this individualized support, and then you get to learn far more. You get this motivation to lose a little less and try and win a little more, because you get to learn more from them. And more on the judging at tournaments, these are oftentimes university students. It is super, super rare for you as a high school or middle school or perhaps elementary school student to ever get to talk with these people that are maybe even in grad school now. They're learning things that are the frontier of knowledge, whereas with you within high school, it's very hard for you to get these kinds of resources otherwise. And the next part, I already kind of talked about it, is the sense of community that I had through debating. So you're around people that are super competitive, and like when you first start off, they're almost always going to be better than you in terms of debating because they've just been doing it for longer. And I think that's really inspiring. For me, it made me want to try and read more, and it made me want to try and learn more, because I wanted to be winning tournaments like that. And everybody is generally really supportive within the community. Because it is not like super large, you'll see some familiar faces after each debate round. You'll wait outside as the judge is deliberating. You'll end up talking to people from all across Canada. As you go to more international tournaments, you'll start meeting people from countries from the UK to Pakistan. And I think that's created a really good community for me, because it has pushed me to keep trying harder and to not just look at like the small pond. So I think sometimes people get stuck in the idea like they're really good at this one thing in their own class. Maybe they're at the top of their high school class. That's only 31 students. So the world is way more competitive than that. University applications. It's not just enough to be in the best of your school, your classroom. You want to be one of the best in a larger global community. I think debate has then taught me to continue learning beyond just the metrics set out by like the grading system at my high school. Another great part of this community is that you'll meet a bunch of mentors that are older than you. I started debating when I was in grade 5. Pretty much everybody was older than me, and everybody was an opportunity to learn from. When I went into grade 9, There are these tournaments called pro-am tournaments. As in the name, you have a pro and you have the am. I very obviously was the am. And I got to partner with a person named Hannah. She's an excellent debater. She goes to McGill now. And I learned so much because at that point, like she had already done, pretty much was done high school. I was just starting and I was really young and I did not really know what I was doing. But you get these opportunities to meet people that are older than you, to develop really good friendships with them. They gave me advice. They would tell me like how to apply to university even because I had no idea how that worked. And they explained to me like what it means to get better at like academic performance or what I should try and do to establish better friend groups for myself. I think it's quite rare for people to have these kinds of opportunities to interact with people that are much older than them and know more than them. And then the last thing is you get a lot of different advice and different perspectives because the community is really large, but you also get to know a lot of people in the community. And I think that means that you're able to access a lot more information about the world, what it means to be a student, not just in Canada, but also in the United States or in the United Kingdom, wherever you want to be in the future. I mentioned previously that I was an Apollo Fellow. I'm pretty sure that means nothing to you guys. It's this debate effective altruism related program. It's in Oxford and it was like fully free. They funded me to go there. It was great. And at the Apollo Fellowship, I learned more about debating at a higher level because I was with some great instructors. But also, I delved deeply into topics like philosophy or artificial intelligence or more complicated economics. And these kinds of opportunities, like free fellowships, fully funded fellowships in elite universities, I think they're one, pretty difficult to get into if you don't already know them and are part of the community. But two, I think you learn of way more opportunities being part of this community with other high-achieving people. And you get to like meet people internationally through things like if you go to compete at WSCC, the World Schools Debating Championship, as part of representing Team Canada, you get to meet people that are the best and smartest students across the world. And you get a great network because you get to meet such interesting and smart people. So I love debating because I think it's taught me a lot. It's made me more intelligent. It's made me more well-spoken. At least I hope you guys think so. And I think it's made me meet a lot of interesting people. Some more local stuff is on leadership. How many of you guys have a debate club in your school? Just raise your hand. Okay, not bad, but also not everybody. And here's where I think you guys can be part of the change. If you get into debating, it's pretty easy for you to start up your own debate club. So when I was in middle school, I decided that I wanted to start a debate club there. I just went to my teacher and I was like, let's start a debate club. And she said, yeah, and she helped me and we started getting established. And we got more students involved and we got to spread debate around. It also meant that I could found a club. And I found a lot of leadership skills there. In grade 9, I was at a school called Warren Park. I don't go there anymore, I go to Whitneystown. But at Warren Park, there was no debate club. And I was in grade 9. So, I mean, when you're a grade 9 student, you do not have a lot of sway or influence over the school. But even still, I was able to go up to teacher and tell them that I want to start a club. And I got the support and we were able to start a club. We started practicing every week. I had an exec team that I had to manage. I was younger than most of them, but I was still able to do it. And I think debating taught me a lot of these skills. It makes you a better communicator, which is super helpful when you're leading a club. And it let me develop my vision of what I wanted the club to be. I wanted my club to involve students that didn't necessarily know how to debate, but I also wanted to involve people that were at the best levels of debating. Afterwards, I organized a whole bunch of tournaments. These managed like thousands of dollars. We fundraised for different charitable organizations. And when I started coaching as part of founding this club, I was teaching and learning simultaneously. And I think these opportunities are quite rare because it's difficult to start a club if you don't have a clear vision for it. I think debating and being really good at debating, you want to share that with other people, help me found something. And obviously it was helpful for university applications. I talked about how I started a club, how I set out a vision. And I think that clear goal, that pathway throughout your high school life is something that is pretty unique towards debating, which is both a really popular competitive activity, yet it's still super inaccessible to a lot of people in some schools that do not have debate clubs. Okay, that's all I have to talk about. I hand it over to Matt.
Well, thank you, Crystal. I'll take that as well. I clearly remember you started public speaking in grade 5.
Yeah.
And we met at a golf driving range, remember? With your family, your parents, your sisters. And can't believe it's been seven years since. But thank you. Now, let's welcome Matt Thompson. I told Matt, you might want to cut your speaking a bit short. So maybe 10 minutes, right?
By my time, we're at 2.
All right, so big round of applause to Matt. Thank you, Matt.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for hanging in there. I know we've been here for a while. If we're feeling anxious at all, especially my elementary schoolers over here, I encourage you to stand up just for a moment, just kind of shake it up. I saw 1 or 2 very aggressive yawns directed right at my direction, which is not great. That's like a social response. So a human sees a human yawn, and then we feel sympathy for you, and we want to yawn back, which isn't good because my man Ken back here is doing media for us, and he's taking pictures, and I'm back here trying not to do. See, look at him go. Look, he was waiting for it this whole time. He was ready to catch me. All right. So I'm going to ask you a few questions as we start. My name is Matthew Thompson, as we mentioned earlier, teacher here at LinkedKey. I'd like to get to know what our objectives are in this room. I'm going to ask you 4 questions. You can put your hand up for multiple questions. You're not locked in on any of them. Am I trying to stay in front of the camera, by the way? It's good. You guys can hear me, right? Okay, good. So, are you interested in debate because of what it can do for your university application? Hands up now. Your application or your child's application? Maybe sort of, you can put your hand up for more than one thing. You don't have to. I know Crystal just went after. Okay, all right. Are you interested in debate because you think it is a lot of fun? Robert, Daniel, nice and high. Yes, Janelle. Yes, good. Janelle loves debate. Good. I'm glad to hear all of that. How about public speaking? How many of us are here because we're worried about talking in front of large groups of people? Hands up if that's concern to you or a concern for your student. We're either very confident or we're super introverted and we're just never going to do it. It doesn't matter. I don't need to know this at all. How many of you are here to destroy people? Oh, hey, there we go. All right. Okay, good. So How talked a little bit about destroying people. She's very used to it. Did you hear this? She was like, yeah, I did my first tournament. It was a tryout for Oxford. It went pretty good. Crystal's first debate tournament is much more familiar to me and sort of what a student gets the first time they go to a debate tournament, which is completely annihilated. One thing Crystal said is that was a Canadian parliamentary tournament, not a British parliamentary tournament. Hands up if you know the difference between those two things. Okay, let me explain that real quick. Okay, good. Janelle knows. BP, British debate, has 4 teams in the round. So if you came last, you lost to 3 teams. If you came first, you beat 3 teams. Canadian parliamentary, just 2, which means that Crystal went in there into a one-on-one competition with another team and lost 4 in a row. 4 in a row, right? You won the 5th one? Hey, okay, all right. That's usually how it goes, right? And then you catch all the 1-win teams. Okay, that's good. That's good. That's good. That's good. Okay, so we've got some slides to go through. Let's see the first one real quick. So at the beginning, I just want to talk briefly about universities. Let's go one more and how they feel about your application. One of the things that I do at LinkedKey is I am an application advisor. So I will help people prepare for the SAT. I will help people prepare their university applications. And I know many of you are in elementary school, but I guarantee you your parents have already thought about what university you're going to go to someday. Some of you might be walking around with Harvard sweaters in their closet and that sort of, oh yeah, there we go. So some of the things, read these quickly because I'm going to move fast. So I don't have time to go over everything on it, but if you want to read it, go ahead and read it. So universities care about a couple things. The first is your grades. this is why someone like Howe mentions, we're gonna slow down in grade 12. We all kind of slowed down in grade 12 a little bit. Yeah, okay. We slow down in grade 12 because we need to crush our high school marks because we're competing to get into universities. So it's your high school marks first, then it's your personal essay, your personal application. I actually helped Sylvia with hers. It was all about how good she is at debate and this wonderful hero's journey of a shy kid who became a debate champion. It's really wonderful. I was quite pleased with how it turned out. You're a very good writer, Sylvia. So after your personal essay, that's your SAT. If you're going to America, you have other sort of subject-specific tests you can do. And then we care about extracurriculars. So extracurriculars do matter. Sometimes there's sports. It's good to have a sport in there if you can. Probably most of you play a sport. Let's poll the kids real quick. Kids, how many of you do a sport? Tennis, swim? Yeah. What do we got? What do you do? Golf. Oh, all right. All right. Hey, cool. I suck. I play badly. Good. What do you play? Volleyball, figure skating. That's what happened to you. Good. See the golfer over here? 2 completely intact ankles. It's just a thing to get to look at the glower. All right. Academic extracurriculars are quite nice as well. Chess is becoming pretty popular. We've got a lot of chess. We also get the music. Hey, hands up if you play piano. Oh, interesting. My non-piano player, what do you play? How did you do that? What's your secret? Usually they say play violin. That's usually the answer. Usually if you don't want to play piano, you learn the violin, they let you out. You know both. Very good, very good. So yes, academic extracurriculars. This is where we'll talk about mock trial, model UN, debate. These are really, really good opportunities to show, as we said, some leadership, some success. We have a lot of trophies over here. Trophies look great. Universities love some trophies. Parents love some trophies. It's good to have some trophies, put them on the dashboard of the car, that sort of thing. And then experience, as I said, we can talk about this in our essays, et cetera, et cetera. Let's keep moving. Let's go next slide. Forward. Thank you. Okay, speaking abilities. Sylvia has totally covered this. So let's just go over this briefly. Students have shown amazing development in speaking after doing just a little bit of debate. Sometimes students come to us, they barely have words. They're barely able to speak. They kind of hide. I think they actually hide a little bit more today than they used to. Some of them will have a sort of security blanket, face mask kind of going on, maybe just like a mask and a set of glasses. And what we find is that debate can really start to bring out personality. So Sylvia had mentioned that you kind of sit back. We're constructive here. We're not going to force you to do something you don't want to do. We encourage you to leave the comfort zone, but I'm not that dad who like throws his kid into the swimming pool. Like, no, you can wade in. We can work our way into this. 2 weeks ago, I had a set of twins join one of my debate classes. 2 great kids named Trinity and Sam. And they seemed very quiet at the start. We weren't sure what we would get from them. I asked them if they wanted to give a speech. Sam said no, Trinity said yes. So we let Trinity go first, and she got up there and she gave a speech, and we were worried that Sam would be really quiet. And it took him about 30 seconds of listening to his sister talk until he took offense at pretty much everything she had to say and demanded that he get to give a speech in response. You sit there and you listen to an argument and you think, no, wait, I can beat that person. There's something wrong with that argument and nobody else is saying it. And eventually it just kind of comes out of the kid where they've never said 2 words and suddenly it's, listen here, bozo, here's 6 things that are wrong with everything you just said. It's really great to watch. It's a really, really rewarding experience as an educator. And it's also just very encouraging to watch how the class will bond together. They know who the quiet kid is, and they like to celebrate when that kid starts to express themselves, when they start to come out of their shell. Debate is an incredibly supportive environment. This is gonna, I'm gonna say some things later, but right now, debate in your class, very supportive environment. This is where you can find great partners. This is where you can find great friends. I have made several lifelong friends from debate. I really, really enjoy this activity. Basically, I'm saying you should try it. Howe mentioned that you need to love it. You said something I thought was quite profound. Everything gets easy once you love it. And I think that's absolutely true. I love this job. This job is easy for me. Teaching is hard for a lot of people. It's not hard for me. I really enjoy doing this. I really look forward to continue doing this. Give debate a try. See if it's the sort of thing that you might love. And if not, keep looking. I'm not going to tell you this is the only thing you can do. Anthony's going to come up later and tell you that you should do something completely different. But yeah, give it a try. See how it goes. See how you feel. Let's keep moving. I try to keep my classes fun. I want my students to look forward to my class every single week, just like Daniel does. Every day he wakes up and goes, "Is it debate day?" And then he gets sad because it's not debate day. But it's good. I try to keep it fun. I try to keep people laughing. If you don't enjoy the activity, you're not going to get better at the activity. Full stop. So I do my best to engage students, to help them enjoy themselves, to help them express themselves. Not every second of class is going to be fun. Sometimes I am going to try to teach you about the Eurozone or something like that. And it's fine. You can be bored for 10 minutes, but I do my best. I do my best to keep people engaged. I like to use young people language to help keep them, you guys know what I'm talking about, right? I'll tell you that in the Eurozone, they used to have a bunch of currencies, right? And they had like the German mark, and that one was lit. And then they had like the kroner, and the kroner was mid. See, it's working. These are my people. But yeah, we try to keep this fun. It's an extracurricular. It should be fun. You should be enjoying your time in debate class for the most part. Let's do the last section and talk about destroying people. So when you get up to give a speech in debate, you have 5 minutes where everybody in the room needs to listen to every word you have to say. They write it down. They take notes. Now, they don't necessarily take notes because you're like inspirational and they're gonna, save it and get it tattooed on themselves when they grow up. They're writing it down because they think it was bad and they're trying to find a way to break it. And that's important because if you don't take good notes, you forget all of the mistakes that your opponent made. And then I tell you about them during feedback, and it's like that moment you thought you played a great chess game and then you hit the review and it's all those like red exclamation points and the coach is yelling at you the whole time, like, take the rook, it's something like that. So Daniel, just 2 days ago, absolutely wrecked Jason. You remember that, Daniel? That feel good, Daniel? It did. It did. Jason gave a pretty good speech and he made one small mistake. And Daniel took a semi truck and drove it right through that hole in his argument. And it was very effective, it was very good, and it was very rewarding to watch as a teacher, because this is going to be good for both people. Because as Crystal said, you're going to lose a lot. And that's a good thing. Most of you haven't done enough losing. Losing is good for a young person. You lose, you learn that it's not the end of the world, that things are going to get better, you pick yourself back up, and then you try to beat the person. We foster a fun, friendly environment where you compete against people that you like. We are supportive of each other. Jason was not mad at you. He might be mad at me when he hears about this speech later. But he was like, that was a really good speech by Daniel, right? He's a great classmate. He's a good teammate. Maybe you guys will be debate partners someday. We'll see if he can catch up to you. Academic competition, though. That's where you start to get with the people who aren't necessarily your friends. And I can tell you from experience, for me, most of my competition at your age was hockey. I am incredibly impressed by debaters high school age and younger, and just your resilience. The fact that you went up there and you gave a great speech, and some judge who's maybe somebody's parent who's doing their best, but their kid got sick and sent them a text message in the middle of your speech. And afterwards, they're like, oh, it was kind of good. They had matching uniforms, and I really liked that. And she told that joke and that was cool. And then they like give you a 4 when you really should get a 1. 13-year-old Matt could not have handled that. I fought with the referees probably every week. And hockey has a very clear set of rules. You put the puck past the line, And if it goes past the line, you get a point. And if you have more points, you win the game. And I found ways to fight about that. And so in debate, we're dealing with style points and judging and, oh, we're not sure if your argument was derivative of the argument before you. Was this a new idea? Was this a new contribution to a debate? I couldn't have handled it. I did handle it in university. In university, I'd mellowed out a little bit. I'd gotten a little bit more mature. And I can tell you from firsthand experience, giving a good debate speech feels great. It feels really good when you're giving a speech against somebody that you don't like. When you can finally wipe that smirk off that guy's face, when you can finally outmaneuver them, when you can get one over on that opponent, that person who's been frustrating you for the last 6 months, that guy who took you out of the last tournament, oh my goodness, it's fantastic. And nobody needs to get body checked. Nobody needs to get a cross check. Nobody needs to get high stick. It's great. It's great. It's a wonderful activity that I highly recommend everybody here try. All right, that's it for me.
All right. You got some results.
Pardon me?
Um,
Yeah, we had the awards. Oh, as you can see, I'm also a graphic designer. You can tell those are medals, right? Yeah, and, oh no, what are they, bagels? Cookies, oh, cookies, first place cookie. Yeah, we've got the little click me if we want to scroll all of our accolades.
all right. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
Give me one quick moment.
There's a lot of pressure for a fake lawyer to follow real debaters. Standards are quite high in this room today.
So before you start, let's do a quick poll. What do you guys think? The subjects, which subject does Anthony teach? Take a guess. Yeah. History. What about you?
Interesting.
You said mock trial. What else?
Well, you're literate. I like that.
No, he actually teaches basketball. He just got retired from NBA. No, I'm kidding. So he's our mock trial teacher. Okay, go ahead, Anthony.
Thank you. So Hal talked about role models in her debate experience, and watching Matt talk about teaching debate has certainly inspired me. I found my role model right here. So, and I especially like the part where he mentioned he was fighting with referees about the clearly set out rules in the tournament, which is essentially why I chose mock trial over a lot of other public speaking activities that I did in high school. And I'll talk a little bit about that later in part 3. So we'll begin with a little bit about myself. So I'm currently studying at the University of Toronto. I'm at the St. George campus. I am currently in Trinity College. My areas of study is ethics, society, and law and public policy. I am currently working at the Government of Ontario on something that's slightly related to our family law system. So the mock trial experience really helps. I'm also a moot team captain at U of T, and I'm currently judging for 2 mock trial tournaments. Okay. So what is a mock trial tournament like? You will receive a fact pattern or a case packet from the organizer once you sign up, and it includes all the case law, all the relevant statutes. Statutes means written down laws passed by Parliament. And it also includes all the exhibits, the evidence, and all the statements from the witnesses. Students will be required to read all of that and come up with a coherent case theory, and then they will go to court. And on that day, they will be assigned to be either the prosecution or the defense. So they'll have to prepare both sides, and they'll be able to give their best to present their side of the story on both sides. The students are usually working in teams of 6 or more for mock trial. So speaking of teamwork, that's a way larger team, which means students will get a lot of socializing and friendships out of it with 6 people rather than 1 people if you're working in a team of 2. That's math. Okay, and in terms of how LinkedKey can help, mock trial as an activity is just getting started in the GTA, and a lot of schools don't have a dedicated mock trial coach or a mock trial team or even a mock trial club. And the way LinkedKey can help is that we can help students register and get a team of 6 or more people to participate in actually these tournaments. There's the OGen ones in Ontario, and currently we're sending a team to Empire, which is one of the world's leading global international mock trial competitions. It's very competitive, and we are one of the only teams representing Canada there. Actually, this morning, our team got invited to sing the Canadian national anthem there to represent Canada. So debaters are usually good speech givers in mock trial. Lawyers, the ones you see on TV, they ask questions, they give speeches. Debaters are good at that. But also on the other hand, debaters make great expert witnesses because they're able to leverage their public speaking skills with a lot of the stuff that they read every day. And they're able to come up with professional responses in fields in which they are pretending to be subject matter experts. So I'll talk a little bit about what sets mock trial apart. I'll explain what I mean by these. The chart is not the best. Well, the chart needs a little bit of explanation. In terms of teamwork, Model UN, I put 50-50, mostly because in Model UN, you do get to work with people, but that starts once you arrive at the competition. You start working with people in your committees, you start working with people in your assemblies, you start working with people once you set foot in that competition. In terms of debate, mock trial and moot court, moot court is a little bit a more advanced form of mock trial. You don't have witnesses, you argue solely about matters of law. You will be working with your own team in all 3. And out of all these, only mock trial and moot court feature a self-contained universe. What this means is that everything you need is given to you by the organizer. You are actually not allowed to do things that are not explicitly listed in that set of rules and facts. So you're not going to be ambushed by anyone unless you didn't do your homework. If you do your homework correctly, you know everything there is about the case, and you're able to handle any question that comes at you. In terms of the interdisciplinary dimension, of course, debate has a lot of interdisciplinary stuff, but what I mean here is it's not specifically related to a specific field of specialization. As all the debaters here know, they read a lot of different stuff, about a lot of different subjects. However, in mock trial, you're going to be mostly reading on legal stuff, and the witnesses will also work on their theater skills. Are there anyone here today who's interested in theater, acting, performing? Cool, you can be a witness for us. And for moot court, it's only going to be focused on law. Some philosophy will be involved, but it's mostly questions of law. And in terms of opportunity to speak, which is really important for parents who want their kids to be good speakers, in Model UN, you really have to kind of fight for the opportunity to speak. If kids have been there, they know that sometimes it gets really competitive, especially when you're younger or less experienced. The more experienced people usually have their ways to get chosen by the chair to speak. Whereas in debate, mock trial, and moot court, you are at least guaranteed a slot of time to speak. I actually did all of these 4 activities, and I eventually chose mock trial and moot court, first because I really have a strong interest in law and legal questions. And secondly, I just don't like being ambushed by facts I didn't know existed before. I read a lot of news, but I don't like the feeling of being destroyed by something I don't know. I would take it much better if I'm destroyed because I didn't do my homework. And that's why I settled with mock trial. And I'll talk a little bit about the benefits of mock trial. So the first one, obviously, is oral advocacy skills. And this is related to all of these public speaking events. Oral advocacy skills are highly transferable to any job and from any of these public speaking events. So if your kids already participate in these public speaking activities, they will be able to have that foundation coming into mock trial, and they will mostly be working on the legal stuff, and they will already be good speakers. The second thing is teamwork, because the roles in the mock trial team is very different from Model UN and debate, because some students are actually taking on a completely different roles. At least 3 students will be witnesses and at least 3 students will be attorneys. They have completely different roles in the competition and they have to coordinate with each other. They have to form subgroups within the larger groups to really work and figure out their arguments, their questions, and their narrative. So that advanced teamwork training is also really valued by universities when you apply, especially to the top ones in the States. They really care about if your kid can be a good team player. And mock trial is one of the best ways to show them. And also you will have legal literacy, which is very interesting because even though Ontario offers law as a high school subject, what you learn is depending on your school, you might learn a lot of stuff or you might learn very little. And it's usually not enough if you're actually interested in the area of law. An example would be one of my seminars is actually taught by a law professor at U of T, and we talked about a lot of the foundational issues in both Canadian and American law. And usually people who are familiar with the concepts are either doing moot court or mock trial, and they have been doing it for at least from their high school. So it is really important to have that legal literacy. And another example I would give perhaps to parents, because kids might not be reading 10 articles about the news like debaters are. Recently, there was a Supreme Court ruling about people who are extremely drunk. And the Supreme Court said that people who are extremely drunk cannot be punished for the things they do while they're extremely drunk. And to a lot of our media, like the CBC, CTV News, it seems crazy. Why would the Supreme Court let people off because they're drunk? But when you actually know the case law in Canada and know the specific state of drunk they're talking about, you actually understand that in that specific level of drunk, so first of all, if you're just drunk on the street, you do not qualify for that case. The case refers to people who are so drunk they don't even know their name. They don't even know what they're doing. They're essentially in a state where they're mentally disabled. And the court is essentially saying that if someone is so drunk, they're mentally disabled, we can't punish them for what they did because it's morally wrong to punish someone for something they cannot recognize. And that is essentially why a lot of the media cases are trying to really oversell the scope of the case. They're saying anyone who's taken some drinks will be exonerated from anything they do, which is not true. But people who have that legal literacy, people who have read the case law, people who know these concepts are able to quickly tell these are just sensational reporting that is not really true. And they will be able to understand why the court did what they did. And of course, the court can be wrong, but it is important to criticize people for things they actually did wrong, not what you think they did wrong, but they actually didn't do that. And finally, you will need to do a lot of research for case law. You are not allowed to do too extensive research because the case packet is self-contained, but usually the case packet will have certain case laws that are giving only quotations from, and you're allowed to go into those case laws and also research the case laws those case laws are based on. So you can still do a lot of research, and those research skills are really useful for university level studies. And of course, if you're doing American or Canadian mock trial, the research tools you'll be using will be almost the same as the ones undergrad and like first degree law students are using in their training. So you'll have a leg up by simply knowing those databases and knowing your way around them. And what comes after high school mock trial? I would say that usually it follows the trajectory of high school moot, and then you would do undergrad mock trial and undergrad moot court, and eventually you'll take your LSAT and be on your way to law school. In law school, both mock trial and moot court are mandatory courses in Canada. So if you are actually wanting to be a lawyer, this is something you cannot avoid. And as we know from all these spectacular debaters, this never too late, but the sooner you start, the better you will get at it. And then it only benefits you in the long run. And also, I want to talk about why starting early is important for people who are interested in law, particularly because Canada is a country that uses common law. So common law means that our courts, they don't only look at the documents passed by Parliament. They also look at cases that other courts have written in the past. For my legal seminars, we have been looking at cases from England in the 1400s, in the 1800s. And just like all the newspaper and academic stuff debaters read, the more judgments you read, the more legal principles you're familiar with, you just don't have to spend that much time in the future trying to catch up with people who already know all these things. And especially because all of the moot competitions, both in high school and undergrad, use really new Supreme Court cases for you to debate. You're really kind of on the cutting edge of Canadian jurisprudence. And if that's something that interests you, you should definitely sign up for that. So that would be everything I have today. And for the questions, I can speak Mandarin. So if parents have questions in Mandarin, I can answer those too.
Great, thank you. Yeah, we'll open for questions, guys. Any questions, anything that you want to ask? Mandarin or English, either one is good. I think you guys are bilingual as well, right? Matt can speak Mandarin, you right? Okay. Go ahead.
I think the courses at LinkedKey start at grade 8, which is actually when I got started as well. It's not that helpful to start too early because just like Model UN, the competitions don't take people who are too young. But yeah, starting around grade 8 would be a good idea. But you can always start by looking at the justice section on the news websites you go to like just get a foundation when you actually start you can use those.
Perfect, thank you.
Yeah, currently we are, Anthony and our team are preparing for a mock trial tournament coming up in 1 week, in 1 week. So yeah, so that would be for high school students, but you can start in grade 9, grade 8, right? So by the time you're ready to go to the competition, you'll be in grade 9. Yes.
They're not exactly the same. So moot court is more theoretical. So in the sense that, you know, when you lose a case at the court, you can take it to the court above it. And the court above it will only focus on if the question of law was decided correctly or not. So moot court is focused specifically on that. So I'll give a quick example. If someone say, if I drove my car into the academy's building right here, mock trial would be focused on whether I actually drove the car into it and whether I was liable for that. There are a lot of legal tests, but for moot court, they'll be focused on if, say, the lower court decided I am liable, I am responsible for the damages, they'll be focused on questions like, is it really fair to punish drivers? Is it in line with our tradition to define driving into a building as a crime? So these are like the difference. This is the difference, I would say.
Were you drunk enough when you were crashing?
Well, that can be both, but yeah.
Yes.
Some law is right now really long. So what do you do this consideration? What do you think she can do, from public speaking to debate ranking or what do you want? So again, for the first invasion.
What grade are you in? What grade are you in? 5. Okay, grade 5 going into 6. So probably public speaking for the summer. If you're excited about a debate, try it. We offer a free trial for pretty much every class.
Yep.
So you can show up, take a look. If you don't like it, it costs you an evening. You know, it's a couple hours, not that big a deal. So if it's not for you, then that's perfectly fine. So I would say give it a try. We're not gonna push you to do anything that you don't want to do. You'll get to see how it goes. I'll set you up with a team to prep with. And then if you want to give a speech, you can give a speech, but you don't have to. Typically, grade 5 is we have you in public speaking. As young as grade 6, we will take you into it. 6 is a pretty decent starting point. As you said, Crystal starting grade 5. So you can absolutely do it. How is public speaking been going?
Yeah, Crystal started public speaking in grade 5, and you started debating in grade 6. Okay. All right.
One more question.
Go ahead.
As we notice, there's type of organization provide debate, such kind of courses, right?
Yeah.
I'm interested in mind, what's the reason work? What's the any special stuff like maybe your school is outstanding any other school, Because I know it's organizations that are like unique or something. Do you mind share something?
Because Matt is here.
Regarding like the organization, I don't know, to inherit, which is something new, right? We just want to get some insight about this matter, and I think what happens to make organization, we make a wide organization, regarding the choice, right?
So I actually recommend that you shop around. That there are multiple options available. We're not particularly territorial. Sylvia had mentioned she spent 4 years in White Oaks Debate Club. Previous years, Sylvia's experience of being in LinkedKey and at White Oaks would have been completely impossible. Their former director of that program kicked people out of his club if he found out they were going to other clubs. We are not like that. We have many students at upper level who do multiple academies because they're trying to get a lot of practice. I believe we have the best products, but that means that I'm perfectly fine when you looking at other products. I'm confident that what we deliver in the classroom is as good as or better than anything that you're going to find. I think that you should make the right choice for you and your student. That has to do with a lot of factors. Locations, timing of classes, who the instructor is, if you think they gel with you. Do you have friends who do debate? What kind of academy do they go to? Bring them to our place. We have free classes. You can do a try it. We're really welcome for that.
Yeah, we have a location here. We have a campus in Mississauga, Oakville. We also have one in Markham. No. And one more thing to add. I think we are probably, I wouldn't say the only one, but for sure, the only few institutions who have a who have a standardized curriculum in debate. So we have developed a standardized curriculum in debate from level 1 all the way to level 5, right? So which means, when you walk into a LinkedKey debate class, you have expectations in terms of what you will learn. Yeah.
So, recently my article, I usually read this. I also read a lot of Global Times, and other things like the Times, but video articles are especially useful because you see a lot of people have some other opinions, during necessary or not. So just certain opinion articles, I also post a lot of YouTube videos, it's very good YouTube, for example, John Harris. Very, very smart guy. He really covers a lot of the things that debate about conversation. That's all the articles I read. Also, I really want to add something to what the question was just from. I've tried a couple of institutions in the past, and I really believe that even in this one seminar I attended, LinkedKey really offers a lot of debate that isn't just, you have to really get tournaments, you have to really have all of your peers. There's a lot of other institutions I went to, they are really, really possibly competitive, where if you don't do well in a round, they're not going to send you for a tournament. So it's not great to get on friendly, but also like not as well as country. And like their seminar convinced me to want to do mock trial even though I've never before. And I'm really interested in people that really enjoy something that like a topic I've just heard about now. And I think that's so important to debate because you need to love something in order to want to do it. And if you don't love it because everyone's always on your back, telling you that you have to do well because how people are not going to love it. So you're going to hate your friends before doing things. You're going to hate yourself. You're going to hate your peers. So yeah, that's my 2 cents. But I do think like he's a lot more friendly to young players and like finding people that they should. So I think that's pretty.
Yeah, it's a holistic approach to education. We are here teaching an activity, we are here teaching you to debate, we want you to get good at debate, but important topics come up. One of my slides, I mentioned how the classes are very interactive and oftentimes student-led. If students are interested in the topic, I will do my best to teach them that topic. Sometimes that's something I had no intention of lecturing. A few years ago, I assigned a news class. I no longer, this is read the news and bring me stories. I no longer do this in level 1 because of what ends up happening in this class. I do it on level 2 onward. So I assigned out a news class. And the day before my class started, which is the normal time most of my level 1 students do their homework, the day before, there was a tragedy in New Zealand. There was a mass shooting. It was religiously motivated. You may remember this was the Christchurch mass shooting. And 12 out of 13 students read this story. And so very quickly it became clear that I could not teach a normal debate class that day, especially when a girl in grade 5 looked up at me and said, "Why do people kill?" And it became clear that just what we were doing that day was going to be a lot more important than debate. And so we had an important conversation about how a person can become so alienated, so upset, so desperate. And we did important work to assure the kids that that's never going to happen to them. They have a good family, a good support network, people they can turn to, people they can talk to, myself, other teachers, people in their community, their parents, their siblings. Some of the stuff that happens in our classroom is much more important than a trophy. And I think that it's important that we really understand the position that debate class, enrichment programs, extracurriculars, mock trial, what have you, have in the overall experience of education. The reason why we teach children things is not so they will do well on tests. It's not even so they will get into a great school and get a great job. We teach children so that they will grow up to be good people. We teach children so that they will grow up to understand the world, understand how they interact with the world. It's important to tell a kid that they're special. It's important that a kid understand that they're not more important than the other people who have them. They get this experience from working with each other, from working with teachers. I think that's some of the things that really sets us apart. That some of the stuff we do, you can't put it on paper, you can't measure it, it becomes difficult to prove, it makes it hard to advertise. But I think that when you're doing the right thing, when you're doing something well, the product speaks for itself, which is, as I said, I have no problem with you taking classes at other institutions. I have no problem with you going to my competitors. I know many of my competitors are good people. I think they do good work. The debate community is not that big. A lot of us know each other. A lot of us debate against each other. Most of them I like. But yeah, that's what I want to say.
Most of them I like.
Most of them I like.
Some of them I don't like. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Any more? We good?
呀，你们如果有中文也可以，有中文问题也可以问哈。我如果没问题，我们就可以了哈。好，谢谢大家，谢谢大家。有啊，我们是有一个计划。那个稍等我一下。